Tonight's story is about a man who never stopped walking. Not because he had somewhere to go, but because he didn't know how to stay. He crossed endless roads, silent forests, and forgotten places, yet he was never lost. Or at least, that's what he believed. Until one night, when the path in front of him disappeared, and for the first time, he had no choice but to face what he had been running from. This is the story of the traveler without a destination. In a world where roads had no end, and paths crossed like roots beneath the earth, there lived a man who never stopped walking. No one knew his name, and perhaps he no longer remembered it himself. People simply called him the Traveler. He had no home, no destination, only one step after another. He walked through places many had never seen, forests where light filtered softly through the trees, villages hidden between quiet hills, stone roads that seemed to lead nowhere. And yet, he was never lost, because he wasn't looking for anything. He walked. That was all. Those who met him always noticed his calm. He was never in a hurry. He never seemed tired, as if time didn't quite reach him. Once, a merchant asked him, "Where are you going?" The traveler stopped, just for a moment. He looked at the road ahead. Then he said, "Forward," and he kept walking. The merchant remained there, confused. But the traveler never turned back. He never did, because stopping, even for a moment, cost him something he couldn't explain. Sometimes, when the sun began to fall and the world slowed down, he felt something inside him. A weight, a thought trying to surface, a feeling he did not want to face. And so, he always did the same thing. He kept moving, one step, then another, until that thought disappeared. Over time, he stopped long enough to let it return. And so, he began to believe it wasn't real, that it was only an illusion. One night, as he crossed a silent valley, something changed. The wind stopped. The stars above him felt closer than before, and the road split. Two paths. One continued forward, long, straight, like all the others he had taken. The other was different, narrow, quiet, as if it had not been made to be followed. The traveler slowed down. It had never happened before. He stopped, just for a moment. He looked at the narrow path, and something inside him moved. Not fear, not curiosity, something deeper, as if that path knew something. And for the first time, after years of walking, the traveler did not know whether to continue or to choose. The traveler stood still. It was not the first time a road had split, but it was the first time he couldn't move forward. The wide path stretched ahead, clear, familiar, without surprises. It was the kind of road he had always taken, without thinking. The other one was different, narrow, uneven, as if it had not been built, but simply left there. The traveler took a step forward, toward the wide path, as always, but his foot stopped, midway, suspended. Then, slowly, it lowered. not onto the wide road, but onto the narrow one. The ground beneath him was soft, strange. There were no footprints, as if no one had ever walked there. The silence changed. It was not empty. It was dense. The traveler moved forward, slowly, for the first time, without knowing what he would find. After a few steps, he saw someone, a man, sitting on a low stone. He did not seem old, but not young either. His face was marked, not by time, but by choices. His clothes were simple, worn, not dirty, used, like someone who had walked a long time and then decided to stop. But there was something different about him. He was still, not because he was tired, because he chose to be. He sat there, as if that exact place was where he was meant to be. He looked up. His eyes met the traveler's, and there was no surprise, only recognition. "You took your time," he said. The traveler did not answer right away. He studied the man. There was something familiar, not in his face, in the way he stayed still. "I wasn't looking for this place," the traveler said. The man gave a faint smile. "I know." The traveler stepped closer. "Who are you?" The man lowered his gaze. He pointed at the ground in front of them. "Look." The traveler hesitated. Then he did. The ground was no longer soil. It was smooth stone, worn, as if someone had walked over it for a very long time. He leaned in, and then he saw it. Not a reflection, something else. Within that surface, there was movement, a figure, a man, standing before two paths. The traveler held his breath. It was him, younger, the same eyes, the same hesitation. He stood there, unable to move. Then he turned away and chose the easier road, always. The traveler straightened abruptly. "That's not real." His voice was firmer now, but not certain. The man on the stone did not move. "It's not a memory," he said quietly. "It's a choice you never made." The traveler looked again. More surfaces, more places in the ground, and in each one, the same pattern. Different moments, same ending. He stopped. He hesitated. And then he walked away. Always forward, always without choosing. The traveler's heart began to beat faster. "That's not true," he said. But this time, he wasn't speaking to the man. He was speaking to himself. The man finally looked up. "You are not free," he said. "You are only in motion." The traveler did not respond. He was still looking at the ground. The images did not fade. They remained stable, real. "Why now?" he asked quietly. "Because you can no longer walk away from it." The wind returned, but it did not bring calm. It brought something he had avoided for years. The traveler closed his eyes, and for the first time, he did not take another step forward. The traveler remained still, not for a moment, not to choose, but because he could no longer move the way he used to. The path behind him was gone. In front of him, only that smooth stone, and within it, still him, the same eyes, the same hesitation. He closed his eyes. For years, He had always done the same thing. When something became too heavy, he moved. When a thought began to form, he kept walking. When a choice came close, he avoided it. And it had always worked, until now. He opened his eyes. The reflection had changed. It no longer showed the past. It showed the present. Him, standing still, without a path ahead, without direction. His breathing slowed, then grew heavier, and then it came. That thought, the one he had avoided for years. It wasn't complex. It wasn't difficult to understand. It was simple, too simple. He had never chosen, not truly. He had only kept moving, so he wouldn't have to face what it meant to stay. The traveler lowered his gaze. The images in the stone did not fade. If anything, they came closer. Clearer, more present. One scene. Him, standing in front of someone. Words unspoken. He leaves. Another. A place where he could have stayed. He doesn't. Another. A choice, left unfinished, then gone. The traveler stepped back, but the ground did not change. It remained there, unmoving, inescapable. "Why are you showing me this?" he asked quietly. His voice was lower now, not angry, tired. The man on the stone answered without moving, "I am not showing you anything. You are finally looking." Silence. The traveler stood there. The images continued. But now, they were not just memories. They were possibilities. Lives he had not lived. Paths he had not taken. People he had never truly known. Everything, still, like him. "If I stop," he said softly, "I lose everything else." The man looked at him for a long moment. Then he said, "If you don't stop, you will never have anything." Silence. The wind moved through the trees, but it did not carry those words away. They stayed, heavy, real. The traveler lifted his gaze. For the first time, he wasn't looking for a road. He was looking for an answer. And he understood. There was no right direction. There was no perfect choice. There was only the courage to stay long enough to accept one. He took a slow breath, then another, and instead of looking down, he looked ahead. There was no path anymore, only space, open, uncertain. And for the first time, he did not step forward to escape. He stepped forward to choose. The traveler stood still. In front of him, there was no path anymore, no direction, no guidance, only space, empty, open. For years, he had always had a road ahead, always something to follow. Even when he did not choose, he chose to keep going. But here, there was nothing left to follow, only one thing left to do: decide. The traveler lowered his gaze. The ground beneath him was still smooth, and the reflection had changed. It no longer showed the past. It no longer showed possibilities. It showed only him, still, present, real. He breathed slowly. For the first time, without trying to escape the moment, he felt the weight, the fear, the doubt, all at once. And he did not move. He let them stay, let them exist, let them speak. The silence around him was no longer empty. It was clear, as if for the first time, He was truly listening. He lifted his gaze. The space ahead was still there, without form, without direction, and yet it no longer felt confusing. He took a step, not toward a road, not toward something certain, but toward a choice. Just one. Not perfect, not safe, but his. The ground shifted beneath his feet, not because a path appeared, but because he had stopped looking for one. The world around him began to move again. The wind returned. The leaves stirred. Time began to flow. The traveler turned. The man on the stone was gone, as if he had never been there. But something remained. Not the place, not the images, the truth. And as he began to walk, this time without escaping, without avoiding, he understood something he had never wanted to face. He was never afraid of getting lost. He was afraid of choosing and losing everything else. But in that moment, he accepted it, because for the first time, he was not chasing every possibility. He was living one. And as the ground shaped itself beneath his steps, slowly, without urgency, a simple truth settled inside him. Moving is not the same as going forward. Sometimes, it is just a way of never truly stopping. And for the first time, the traveler was not running anymore. He was living. Final reflection. Sometimes we think we are moving forward just because we keep going, but movement is not the same as progress. Sometimes it is only a quiet way of avoiding what we already know. We wait for the perfect path, the perfect moment, the perfect choice. But life does not ask for perfection. It asks for presence, for courage, for a single step that is truly yours. Because in the end, it is not the path that gives meaning to the journey. It is the moment you decide to stop running and start living.